Alright, good morning everybody. Sorry I can't be there today. I just want to talk to you guys about transforming polynomial functions. What we're going to be doing and what you're expected to do on this last lesson for the unit is be able to take an equation of a transformation and be able to transform it and write a new equation for it. Let's do a little bit of review before we get into the topic here. Recall that when we were dealing with quadratic functions a couple of units ago, we would take this function here, f of x equals x squared, which would create that parabola shape right there. And then eventually what we did with this is we started modifying that and modifying how the graph looks. Now what you can notice here is that the parabola has its vertex right here at the center, the origin of the graph, and right there at 0, 0. And so then what we end up doing with this function here is we end up modifying the equation and end up creating new functions. For example, if we were to change this function here and now all of a sudden we look at a function that looks like this. What we've done here is a vertical translation, and that vertical translation shifted this function 3 units up from where the old vertex used to be. Now notice the vertex is right here at 0, 3. Suppose we look at another kind of function. What if it looked like this? Having the function say now f of x equals x squared minus 2, now that vertex has shifted. Instead of at 0, 0, now it's down to 0, negative 2. So when we have these numbers that are not in parentheses, remember we talked about this before, when the number's not in parentheses, that creates your vertical translation. Now when we started adding and subtracting values that were inside parentheses, in other words before we started squaring the values, what that created was a horizontal translation. And remember what that created here was that opposite game. Remember we said that with parabola graphing there was an opposite and same game going on. Okay, so whatever this sign was, that means we were going to go to the opposite direction. So if it said minus 2, we were going to go to the right 2 and have that vertex go right here at 2, 0. If we change it to a plus sign here, now it says x plus 3 squared, and we're going to move it to the left. We move it to the left 3 units here, as you can see. And then what we started doing with these is started combining them together and doing both vertical translations and horizontal translations at once. Take a look at this one. In this example here, we have x minus 1, which means that we have to move this to the right 1 from 0, 0. And here with that plus 2, that means we had to move up. Alright, other side of the note sheet, let's do these rapid fires so you can see how this process works with each individual one of these here, and then we'll start to pair them together. So vertical stretching compression, all that is just a distributive property. So when we're given the function right here, 8x cubed minus 2, vertical stretch by a factor of 2, we're taking 2 times 8x cubed minus 2. So our new function here, when we apply the distributive property here, is going to be 16x cubed minus 4. Well, what if we were doing it by a factor of 4? Well, now instead of multiplying it, the 8x cubed minus 2 by 2, now we're going to multiply it by 4. Distributive property, distributive property. 4 times 8, that's 32. So we have 32x cubed. 4 times minus 2, that's minus 8. There we go. What if they wanted to do a factor of a half? Well, that just means we're cutting those two things in half. So 8x cubed, that's the first term, 2 is the second term, and now we multiply them by a half and distribute those in there. Now we're at 4x cubed minus 1. Make sense? So now looking at the vertical reflection, it's still distributive property. Now we're going to distribute a negative 1. So now we have negative 1 times 8x cubed minus 2. Distribute, distribute. That's negative 8x cubed. It just changes everything to the opposite. Now minus 2 becomes a positive 2. Alright, so now look at these 4. Vertical translation with that same function here. If I want to move it 2 up, we're going to take our 8x cubed minus 2. Vertical translation is a same game. And so now we're just going to add 2. Now notice what happens when they add 2. Actually, these add up to 0. So now we're just left with 8x cubed. Moving it 7 units up, that's 8x cubed minus 2. And now we're going to add 7. We're playing the same game here. So we do do that. Now we have 8x cubed, negative 2 plus 7, that gives us a positive 5. So now if I wanted to take 8x cubed and plus 5 and move it 3 down, it's the same game. What I'm going to do here is to subtract 3 from that 5. So now I have 8x cubed, 5 minus 3. Now we're at positive 2. Last example here, 5 down, still looking at 8x cubed plus 5. 5 down, now we're subtracting 5. And notice once again those cancel out and we're left with just simply 8x cubed. Now the horizontal translation, remember when it goes horizontally, that is an opposite game. So we do an opposite game here, 3 to the right. It was what, 8x cubed minus 2. What we're going to do here, just like we saw before, is we need to swap that x out with an x. Now we're moving to the right, so opposite, we need to think of it as minus 3 right here. We're just going to put that in its place. So now we have 8 parenthesis x minus 3, cube it, minus 2. Let's do this even faster with these ones here. Maybe we can jump straight to the end here. That would be 8, and then if we're going to the left, now that would be x, and then plus how much? 2. Over here, 8 parentheses going to the right, x, opposite game right, so I got to think minus. Seven left. Opposite, I'm thinking plus. And there you have it. Now these here, if we put them both together, we're doing the same thing that we just did on the last front side of this note sheet. We want to take that 8x cubed minus 2, stretch it vertically by a factor of 3, so that's just like these ones right up here. Notice we're just doing the distributive property here. So let's just do the distributive property on this. Let's take this function here, and let's multiply it by 3. Boom, boom. 24x cubed minus 6. Now it wants to translate 3 units up. That's a vertical change. That's a same game. So now we just add that 3 here. And so now our final answer here with f of x here is 24x cubed minus 6 plus 3. We're at minus 3. Last example. Let's take that 8x cubed minus 2. I'm kind of proud of myself that I remember this function every single time. Usually I have horrible memory with these things. Stretch vertically by a factor of 2. So now we just got double the distributive property. So that's 16x cubed minus 4. And then translate 5 to the right. Wait a minute, this is a horizontal move, so we have to play an opposite game here. So we're going to swap out this x right here, and we're going to put what in its place? Right, so I'm thinking a minus sign. We got to put a 5 in there. Alright, tear into that assignment.